Hey guys, happy Thursday. Want to talk about the respiratory system, and I wish there was some like fun labs and stuff for this one that I had. Like the one I have is kind of messy and required a lot of tools, and so being that not we're not at school, it's kind of tough to do. But we'll talk about some other animals and how they breathe compared to humans. And if you want to be at your notes here, this is slide 17, just how we breathe. Um, I'm actually going to skip through and we'll talk about people first, I think, which is actually the last slide, slide 24, and get this diagram kind of labeled so you kind of know how you breathe. This is the starred one, and then we can talk about some other animals, maybe a little bit today and a little bit tomorrow as well. Hopefully you took the quiz from yesterday. And yeah, let's get started. So there's a couple videos in here that I would ask you to go ahead and watch on breathing. It doesn't take too long to hit those up. But let's just go ahead and label our kind of like breathing organs so that you guys know how you take a breath in. So first of all, the breath in that you're going to take comes in through your mouth or your nose, and they are connected, and you can separate those two. So you can breathe through one or the other. And when you do that, it's going to go into the trachea. So this is like your breathing tool. So I'm going to take this and just kind of move it over. So the trachea is like a ribbed, rigid pipe. Like if you feel your neck, and you can go ahead and place your hand on your neck. If you feel that tube inside of your neck that is round and solid and kind of big, that's the trachea. Okay, that carries not food, it's carrying air down to your lungs. Okay, it's also got like bumps on it or ridges on it, and that is used to kind of help make vocal sounds. Them to like some plastic tubes you can make sounds with. I think they're called sound tubes. If you've ever seen anything like that, so they do have like ridges on them, and you can get them in different lengths, I think, and they make different sounds based on the length. But basically, it looks like this. We pass air through it, and it makes a sound. I remember having these as kids, and you can kind of swirl them around and make kind of cool sounds with them. So it's basically like what your trachea is inside of your neck, and yeah, that carries air down. Okay. And it's going to carry air down into these two pipes right here. Those two tubes are called bronchi, or bronchial tubes, and there's two of them. And there's one right there and then one right here. So basically your air is going to branch either into your right lung or to your left lung. And then from there, it's going to branch into any number of little tiny branches, and these get smaller and smaller and smaller, and they're called bronchioles. And so these are just tiny, tiny tubes now that are carrying the air to their final spot, which is these alveoli. Now, alveoli are the air sacs inside of your lungs. So don't think of your air or your lung as like one bag. It's actually thousands upon thousands upon thousands of little tiny bags, each of them able to hold a little bit of air. And if you notice, surrounding that bag is blood. So you have blood vessels that surround that air bag. Those are called capillaries. We'll talk about those in a little bit. But this is the spot where air comes from the lung and diffuses, if you remember that word, into your blood. And then you have CO2 in your blood that's kind of made by your body, and that's going to diffuse back into the alveoli, into the air that's in there. And then you exhale that. You get rid of it. You expel it through your mouth again. Okay? That leaves us with one more word, and then the two videos that I think you guys should go ahead and watch. Go ahead and click on those in your notes to watch that after we're done here. The one last thing we have is your diaphragm, and maybe you've heard your like choir teacher or someone tell you to breathe with your diaphragm. It's super important, especially in athletics, and that I run a lot, and we talk about breathing a lot when we talk about running efficiently. So whether you're in like bands and have to use your lungs, or if you're in choir, or if you're in athletics, like the diaphragm, breathing from what they say is your belly, is very important. But the muscle is below your lungs, And it is a muscle that's controlling it. So you can control the diaphragm, but what's amazing is you don't have to think about it either. Your brain can also control it without you thinking about it. So it's kind of a neat muscle that you are in control of, but yet at the same time don't need to be. And what happens with that is when you flex that muscle cells actually shrink, and that leaves like a space. And that space that's in there from flexing that muscle allows air to like zip in and fill that space. And then when you relax the muscle, it actually expands and pushes on your lungs, and then you breathe out. So that when that pushes on your lungs, the air is forced out. And that's basically how you breathe. So that's a human. We pull air in through the trachea, bronchi, and into the alveoli, and then you push some out. And I'd love to say that you're really good at breathing, but you're really not. And we'll talk about like how some of the other animals that work the same way are a little bit better. So I will go back to slide 18 here. If you want to pause and take a break, you can. But 18 is on bug breathing, and talk about that because it's probably pretty easy, and I might get into salamanders too here. Just because it's not going to take a ton of time. You're welcome to click on this. There's another little quick video on bug breathing. It's probably worth watching. But really, bugs are pretty simple. They have little tubes, little holes all in their body. They're called spiracles. So like running down the length of their body, there's little holes. And they connect it to little tubes, which connect to little air sacs, and that's it. Like, they don't move air in and out of their bodies. Air diffuses into their bodies and air diffuses out of their bodies through little tiny holes. If those holes get clogged with some water, they're going to drown. If they get clogged with, say, like a powder, maybe you've seen me like put calcium powder all over them to feed bugs to like the lizards in our classroom, they can suffocate. So they're full of just little tiny holes. That's it, spiracles, and they're connected to tracheal tubes, those tubes that go into their body, and air just diffuses in and out. But the interesting problem with this is that is why they are so small. Honestly, bugs could be amazing if they were huge. Like there's beetles that can run, like if they were your size, could run 300 miles an hour. Ants obviously lift huge amounts of weight. Dragonflies are these nasty predators with huge wings that fly super fast and big teeth. And I would be super scared if they were our size because they're covered in a suit of armor and they fly and they're extremely fast and they jump super far. Why don't they get big? Right? Why are they tiny? Well, it's because they don't breathe very well. Like their breathing relies on diffusion, and diffusion happens too slowly. It's not fast enough to cover big distances. And our breathing definitely relies on diffusion as well, but we facilitate it. We pump the air in and out of our bodies, and that means diffusion can happen at a quicker rate. So like we can pump out CO2 rich air and breathe in or pump in oxygen rich air so it can diffuse quicker to get into our large body. And bugs don't do that. So they can't get that big because diffusion takes too long. They would suffocate and die if they got any bigger. There are, however, times on our planet when bugs were pretty dang big. And that was a time when diffusion could happen at a faster rate. Back in time, dragonflies could be about as big as this. This is kind of what our fossil record shows us, like 2.5 feet across. That is a big bug. And we had them in fossils from about the time of the dinosaurs. And here's why. That time there was a ton of plants. There was actually a lot of lands stuck together in big continents. It was in a fairly tropical region of our planet, so they weren't like frozen under ice caps, and it was very supportive of, and it was nice and warm too, so plant growth. And there was a ton of big plants, and they put out a whole lot of oxygen. And we do know from studying oxygen contents in rocks and stuff that the Earth's atmosphere was high in oxygen. And then if you look at the fossil record, you can also see that with the bugs that we find too. They were quite large compared to how they are today. And that's because the higher concentration of oxygen in the air made diffusion occur quicker into their bodies. And so they could breathe faster back then when there was more oxygen on the planet. And they got bigger because of it. 2.5 feet. Can you imagine seeing a dragonfly 2.5 feet long? Like, I don't know. I'd be a little bit worried about it if it landed on me. But they're quite large. I'll show you some fossils here. Obviously, we have fossils of dragonflies. There's not really a great size comparison. This one kind of did show you the size of this wing in a fossil compared to dragonflies that exist today and how much larger that one would be. Here's like an artist rendition of maybe like if a dragonfly was to land on a person, how big it would be back then. I mean, we were talking quite large dragonflies. So we know they can exist. We know they did exist. It's just our planet is not kind of set up for them to exist right now. Anyway, kind of cool. Hopefully you enjoyed the insect stuff. I think maybe tomorrow I've talked in long enough. We'll talk about salamanders and fish and dolphins. And I don't know, birds are really interesting, so I might hit those a little bit later. Hey, have a good Thursday. Take care. Stay safe. Missing you guys. I like talking to you guys when you're here a whole lot more. All right. Have a good day.